Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of RailCats Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savetic, and we'll see how long this podcast lasts. I am a bit of a sore throat, so it's been a while. Medicine finally kicking in to kind of combat the soreness of the throat, so we can kind of get through this. I didn't get able to do a Kane County review just because with it being a 4-game series, my nephew's birthday party, and then I had my niece all weekend. We went to the Shed Aquarium and all that fun jazz, so there was no time to really, and especially the game being at 6:30, I didn't have time to do a podcast over the weekend, and then with the doubleheader and so on and so forth. So we will do the Kane County review, and then we will do the 2 games on Monday and Memorial Day of the Sioux Falls doubleheader. So going into Kane County, the RailCats lost 12-9 against Sioux City. So going to Kane County 4-game series. Thursday, they lost 9-6. Friday, a rain-delayed start. Started an hour later than normal. Then, through the 3rd inning, there was another delay. So then the next time it started was 9:20-ish, 9:30. I'm not sure exactly what time it started on that front. And so the RailCats ended up winning 5-1. The game ended I was in South Bend at the time, so it was an hour ahead, so it was 11:20-30 our time, but South Bend time it was 12 something or 12:30 their time, whatever the case may be. And then on Saturday they lost 5-6, and then on Sunday they lost 1-3. There's a lot to take away from this. The RailCats scored 17 runs. They were outscored 19 runs. The amount of Kane County stole 8 bases in a 4 game, so that's twice a game. Those are runs right there. That's 2 runs in total basically if you take the bases stolen. Well, actually it's 2.5 runs, almost 3-ish, because you only steal 2 bases at a time, so it's more probably about 4. Well, so if you're still home. Beside the point, you get where I'm going with it. Too many bases are being stolen at this point. They gave up 4 home runs in that series, 5 extra base hits. All of them were doubles. The Sioux Falls one was a little bit eye-catching in that portion of it. This is just one of those situations. You take a really good. You come off of offense production really in the last 2 games, 3 games realistically, even if you take the Thursday series, the Thursday game, you score 6 runs, and if it'll pop up, the box score would be nice. It's one of those situations where this was a game where you really needed the pitching to stay steady. And I keep preaching. You you score 5 to 6 runs a game. You should win close to, I would say, 80% of your games. And right now they're a 20% win rate, and that's just something that you can sit here and we can nitpick the offense, because realistically when we go over the Sioux Falls game, the offense stuttered out. There was some bad base running. It's just one of those the first game was home runs galore for the RailCats. Valera gets 1, Contreras gets 2, but outside of that, Valera gets a hit, then Marcos Gonzalez gets a hit, Contreras gets 2 hits. We only had 4 hits in that game, and that's one of those situations where that was the offense producing, but when you go through and you look at the third inning, Gary scores 2, then they give up 1. They go in the fourth, Gary scores 2, they give up 3. And then you go in the sixth, they give up, the RailCats give up 4. And then you go in the seventh, and you kind of bring it nice and close. You bring it within 2, make it was 6-8 at that point, and then at the bottom you give up another, like that's 9. Like, and then you don't do anything else the rest of the game. Like, it's one of those where, like, the punches for the offensive side is there, and then the defense just doesn't, give you what you need. And I mean, Tiedemann starts the game, he gets lost, he goes 5 innings, and he gives up 6 runs, but 3 of them were earned. So you have an error. I think the error was actually on him. So, like, it's one of those, like, where it's kind of like, hey, this is on your court here in this situation. But it's just one of those it's another, but that's the 6 runs because Vitriago comes in and he gives up a handful of runs. They had the box score kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that one, because they have, well, no, that would make sense. He pitched full 5 innings. He started the 6th. That's when they kind of all fell apart on that portion of it. It kind of sucks that Tiedemann gets tagged with a couple of the runs because of they were left on base and Vitriago is the one that gives it up. It's just like one of those situations where you just the starting pitcher goes 5 innings. That's kind of what you want. At that point, he really wasn't giving up much. And then, the relief pitcher comes and he gets put in a situation. Let me see here. The single and then a double. Then Vitriago comes in. So, like, he's already kind of put in a bad situation. But then he gives up a single that's scoring 2 runs. And then there was a stolen base, then a walk. And then you get another single and that scores 2 more runs. It's just one of those situations where, like, you really need it at that point. Okay, you could probably give up the 2 runs. They get tagged towards Tiedemann. It is what it is. Like, life goes on. You give up the 2 runs, not that big of a deal. But when you give up 4 runs and you can't combat off of that, it's just one of those situations where it's like, I understand in the situation of that, the offense really, at the point of the game, the offense was there, and you go back, and this is another line that I saw in one of my comments was, it's same song, different band. Like, this is the same thing that we've been dealing with for at least the past 3 years. There's no consistency in the offense. There's no consistency in the pitching. When the pitching, and what I mean by consistency is not so much like consistent as they're going to go 3 or 4 games where they're just going to shut everyone down. Like, I'm not saying they're going to do that. I'm just saying consistent to where, the starting pitcher may give up 3 runs. The bullpen may give up a 1 run. Like, those are the kind of situations where I'm kind of talking like consistent, like throughout. They're consistently giving up a handful of runs. I'm not expecting this team to shut everyone out. Well, they haven't done that in general. I'm just saying this pitching staff isn't built for that necessarily. The issue is when you combat the numbers. Like, I know you don't want to look at that. That's why I had to dig a little bit deeper. Like, the ERA is towards the middle of the pack. Like, it's not terrible. The offensive production, the runs aren't quite there, but the number, they're not the worst team out there necessarily in batting average and all the other stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. I can go through those numbers in a little bit. I just want to get through here. Moving along in the Kane County series, you lose that 9-6 game, and then you have the 5-1 game where Peyton Long comes out and he pitches 3 innings. He pitches really well. Nothing you could really do in that situation when the rain happens. Ryan Munoz comes in, he gives it the run, but he pitches nice, and he comes through, and he has himself a nice game. He gets the win out of it. He gets the win because Peyton doesn't go 5 innings or whatever the case may be, and then Valdez comes in. He only gives up 1 hit, but he gives up 3. He gets 3 strikeouts. Josh Smith comes in, he pitches his 1 inning, gives Nate Alexander comes in and he gets his 2 innings, or his 1 inning, gets his 2 strikeouts. Like that's the kind of thing. You have the lead and you hold the lead at that point. Now, even though necessarily the game ended up being tied in the 5th, but ultimately, the RailCats score 4 runs in the 7th, which is something that you need, and then you need the bullpen to shut it down. Like that's what you kind of needed in the first game, was you get that nice, you get the lead. Well, actually, at the point it was tied. The game was tied. My bad. But still, like if you would have been able to hold them there and you let your offense come through, not give up the 4 runs in the 6th inning, like that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Is when the offense is producing, and then you don't get that production from the bullpen because they have one bad inning that ruins the rest of the game. The Sunday game, or the 5-6 game on Saturday, you go up by 3 runs, and that's when you really expect it to get shut down. But the issue is, at this point, I think this was the game that DNA was supposed to pitch, but then his contract got transferred to Quintana Rio of the Mexican League. However you want to pronounce that, for the Mexican League. So like you had to throw a bullpen arm, and then that was going to be Andres Diaz, and he pitches really good the first 3 innings, and then he goes in the 4th inning, and that's when everything kind of goes haywire, where he gives up the 3 runs. And like that's the situation where you could have been like, okay, we could have burned this and made this a bullpen game day, and have the bullpen go 2 or 3 more innings than normal in that case, because you saw it early on in the 4th inning with Diaz. He gets a nice 3-1 out, but then he gives the single, and then he walks, and then there was a fly out. He was at a position of where you had the 2 outs, but then he gives up another walk. And then there was a whole bunch of the pass ball, a single to first, and then an error by the third baseman. Like there was just a lot that happened in that situation, to where maybe not so much on the pitching staff as the defense to a certain extent, but like the pass balls, the walk, like those situations don't help. And I really think from there, that's when things kind of crumbled a little bit with the pitching staff and their control, because going into the 4th game, Sanabria pitches 5 innings, but he had 3 walks, and a lot of those, they score first. I think they score first off a wild pitch, or it was a hit by pitch. The bases were loaded, and it was a hit by pitch that brought in Craig. And from there, it was just like the offense. Like again, the offense didn't produce. Like you gave up 3 runs, so it's kind of hard to sit there and complain to about the pitching staff. But when I get into the numbers, it kind of makes sense to a certain extent of what I mean by, especially the Sioux Falls series. Like that, I mean, granted, I know that are the first 2 games, and the games were kind of close until the end. I mean, game 1 of Sioux Falls, you're going 3-1 basically. You go to the 5th, and it comes 4-1, and then they score 2 more in the 7th to make it 6, and you only score 2, but you have 9 hits, or you have 7 hits. The RailCats has 7 hits, but the issue comes into lie when I look here and I go, let's see what if I had it pulled up. No, I don't. Oh, no, did I not? I must have not. I had it written down. I thought I had it written down, but I guess I didn't. I can just count. So you have, in the first game, you have 2 extra base hits, 3 extra base hits if you count the home run, and a double from Gonzalez and Brendan Fields. And then, you go into the second game and you don't have any. And Sioux Falls had a triple, 3 doubles in game 2, and then they had a home run, another triple, and two more doubles. Like, that's the thing that, like, the OPS, the slugging percentage, everything of the RailCats, like, they're just, when they're getting hits, they're getting singles. Right? You can't just play singles and home runs, and that's the issue that I think we're running into, is we're playing singles and home runs. The home runs are nice, right? It's one of those, like, it's nice to have home runs, but when it's single, out, 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 and the next inning you go up and it's a home run, solo home run, like, that's cool, you score 1 run, but then the rest of the time it's that you have no other production going out of the lineup. And in the case of Sioux Falls, is like you hit a double or you hit a triple, and it's the first batter of the game, first batter of the inning, and you have at least we have 3 chances to score, but really 2 good opportunities to hit a sac fly or a sac bunt, or whatever the case may be, and get him home. Like, your chances are higher versus hitting a single and then trying to get the guy all the way around, when really you haven't been stealing a lot of bases, and you're not, the hit and runs aren't necessarily there like they were last year. I don't, like I said, it's this team is built completely different than it has been in years past. But, like, when it clicks, when it goes, but then when we don't see, it's hard to see the individual that is going to be, like, I know that Quintana was on a 15-game batting streak, and he was on a 11-game hitting streak. Those are all nice, but when you go 1 for 5 and most of them are singles, like, great, you're batting at 200 and you're getting a single every 5 at bats, as everyone else is every 5 at bats, and then nothing's clicking in together. So I'm not going to just sit here and harp all on the batting here. You got to look at the pitching as well, as when they're giving up hits. So, like, let's just, when I go into let me just kind of go into the overall team stats. So when you look at team total, at least batting wise, so right now Gary is second to last in average at 235, and Chicago's actually at a 233. So you're kind of wondering, you're going, well, why is it that Chicago's having a better season than Gary is when you look at the batting average? Well, when you look at the slugging percentage, the slugging for Chicago is 410 and Gary's at 317 or 371. That's not the worst. Actually, Lincoln and Winnipeg are worse than that. When you look at on-base percentage, we're the worst in on-base percentage. We're only batting a 305. Like, that's another thing that I have to kind of harp on a little bit, is the aggressiveness of the RailCats. Sometimes when a pitcher is struggling, or you're struggling, maybe you just need to take a step back, and maybe you're not comfortable hitting in a 2-strike count. I get it. But when you put yourself in a situation where you're not reading the ball and you're biting in every slider or every curveball in big situations where you just want to hit the ball out of the park, like, that's not going to work. This is where you need to get back into just hitting the ball in the gap. Like, that's something that's I've been seen from Valera this year, is he's changing his style. When an 0-2 count or runners on base, like, he's taking the ball the opposite field. Now he's swinging for the fences. Like, it's a home run contest kind of deal. It's just like, just bring it back. Hit. Sioux Falls, I think we gave up one home run against Sioux Falls in 2 games, right? And they scored how many times? 10 times, I think it was, ish, around there, maybe. Yeah. I actually have it. I think I wrote it down. But I wrote it down. I just forget how I wrote it down. It happens. It's just like one of those situations. So, when you look at the batting, like, yeah, the batting average isn't terrible. The runs per game, you're scoring 77 runs, which isn't bad. But then when you get into the pitching side of it, you're giving up 97. Like, your 20 run differential right there, a negative 20 in run differential. And the part that really sucks about this is the earned run aspect of it. There's only 86 of those runs that have been earned. Now, granted, three of them maybe on a pitcher, so on and so forth, but like that's defensive mistakes. That's errors on the side of those runs. When you're causing errors, they're in big situations that are causing more runs than not. You're giving up 161 hits. That's the highest in all of the league, and that's by almost 20. Link Country is at 146. Granted, they don't have as many innings because you have the double header, but the walks, they're second in walks. Wild pitches, not so. Hit by pitches, you're third in hit by pitches. Strikeouts, you're fourth on the bottom on that. When you look at the whip, we're the highest in whip at 155. Slugging against is 433. And you look at the average against, we're highest at a 266. The ERA, like I said, it's a 507, and that's actually fifth best in the American Association. Like, you're in the top half of the ERA, but when you look at all the rest of it, and home runs, we haven't given up a lot of home runs, like a decent amount, but only 14. That's towards the bottom of the league in that aspect. It's just one of those, like, when you take it all together, it's just nothing's clicking at the time that it should. The runs aren't being produced when they should be. The pitching, when we are producing the runs, the pitching's not there, and then when the pitching's there, the runs aren't there. So it's like you can nitpick each individual person, and each individual person you can nitpick. For example, like, you can't even get any breaks. Is Brandon Fields comes in and he has two wonderful great hits. He gets on base, and then he's on second, and Gio rounds the ball to short or second or whatever the case may be, and he takes off and goes to third, and he gets gunned out. Like, that's a maturity thing. Like, I understand it's a maturity aspect of it. He's coming from the draft ball league. He's coming from college. Like, he's not used to that. But then, it's simple mechanics of, you're sitting on second, and line drives, it gets hit to second base, the second baseman, and you're out by a mile because you thought the ball was going through. Like, that's like simple, like, little league stuff. If it's a line drive, freeze. Like, if it's less than 2 outs, freeze. Like, that's stuff that you're taught at an age of when they start actually pitching the ball and the runs count and that kind of stuff. Like, those are the mistakes you can't be making on that aspect of it. And I would say maybe on the defensive side in the last game, I know that, and this is another, like, the team's not seeming to communicate very well, is when there was a ball that was hit out of in foul territory to the right. Gio Diaz, I think the bases were loaded. He catches the ball and he throws it to third instead of throwing home. There was no communication. He probably saw that it was probably easier to get the third baseman than it was trying to throw home. I get it. That's beside the point. Realistically, in that point, I would just let the ball drop. Like, let it go foul. Like, the ball was far enough to where you're going to score a runner from third no matter what. Like, the way that Gio was running, and even at that case, if you had a faster right fielder, if he was there coming down faster, he would have been able to make that throw easier. But Gio was running back, stopped, had to plant his feet and throw it. I'm not really complaining of, like, where he threw the ball, because even if he threw it home, he still wouldn't have got the guy at home. Like, it's just plain and simple. At that point, it should have been, hey, just kind of let the ball drop. Like, we're still in this game. I think if I go back, oh Lord, because it was the last. I think it was the last. Yeah, it was the sixth inning when they scored like 3 runs, and you had an out, a single, another single, a double that scored. That kind of thing. There was like a foul, sack, fly, however they wanted to put it in there. I can't remember. I thought it was the second game. Maybe it was the first. No, it was the first game. My bad. It was the first game. It wasn't the second game. It was the first game. that happened. Um, like I said, it's arguably that Sioux Falls arguably is probably one of the better pitching staffs in the American Association. It's just the issue is where's the production going to be coming at? Where it's like I said, it's the same song, different band at this point. Uh, the pieces are there. It's just nothing's happening. My fear is that they're going to lose the locker room sooner than later, because I don't mean to put them on blast, but this is kind of one of those situations where, I was talking that Ty Tiedemann and Josh Smith come into my work. I mention who I am, that I'm going to the game, blah blah blah, and my first response to saying, "Oh, hey, I know you guys are RailCats pitchers. I'm going to the game." It shouldn't be, "Oh, cool, can't wait to see you there." It's, "Oh, we'll try not to suck." That's disappointing. Like those are two new guys, and not saying, I think Josh Smith has done a good job. Let me look at his stats real quick. Yeah, he has a 2 ERA right now. And the ERA came against Sioux City, where he gave up 4 runs on 5 hits. 2 of them were earned, but after that, no one's touched him. Like, he's given up since that game. He's given up 1 hit and no runs, 4 strikeouts and no walks. Like, at the beginning of the year, he was a little rough as far as like walks via the strikeout, but he's done a lot better now. He's taken his whip that was the highest at 217 and brought it down to 156 in a matter of 3 games. Ty started 3 games. He has an ERA of 5.65. He's averaging giving up 3 runs a game. He gives up a lot of hits. In 4 games, he has a whip of 160 at this point, like 18 hits. That's not the best either. But, sometimes it takes a minute for the pitching to get there. To a certain extent, I would say it's quicker to get the pitching there than it is the offensive side. And that's the hard part is, sometimes when you find pitching, it's hard to, you lose DNA, who was, pitching pretty decent. I mean, he has a 3.56 ERA. Just looking, he gave up 17 hits, but all in total, he had the really one bad game against Sioux City, but he ended up pitching 8 innings out of it. That was just a bad game and a hit on his point. And I mean, I was kind of shocked that he got picked up by the Mexican League after the last outing that he had, but maybe it's because he went 8 innings and he showed himself to battle through that, and it was just one of those things. And that leads it to we have now Nikolai Piazza, who is from Italy, who was with Kansas City. He had with Kansas City, let's see, he played in 3 games, 4.2 innings pitched, 10 Ks, 3 walks, 2 hits, giving up 1 run for an ERA of 192. But then, we see him in Kane County in the last game, in the 3-1 game, and he gives up 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Like, that's not what you expected. And I mean, realistically, he got replaced in Kansas City not because of how he was pitching. It was because they brought in a major league arm, and he was the lowest guy in the totem pole, basically. So like, okay, 1 game, and realistically, Kane County was bad. It has, I think they're pretty high in the batting average in general. So like that's not a good, like I don't think there's nothing about them that has impressed me except maybe Weston Murr. Their pitching staff hasn't looked like the greatest, except Murr. I mean, he shut down the RailCats, but it's just one of those situations where I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's one of those. We're beating the same drum we have been the past 3 years, and nothing's changed. And it's one of those like you go to the ballpark and you expect a good game and you get a good game and then it all falls apart. And it's just like it's May. I know it's May. It's still a little bit early. We're almost 20%, 25% of the way through the season, but we're not quite there yet. Once we hit the 25% mark, the 25 games, I'll do like a full like rundown of the list of stats and everything of what everyone's doing, where we're at. It's just right now that I'll probably try to set it to where if I'm being honest, my weekends this year are just jam packed with a bunch of stuff. So anything that goes on during the weekend is going to be hard for me to digest, to get a hold of, to do anything with. So it's going to be like middle of the week kind of content to a certain extent. I want to try to do each series, especially home, because a lot of times I obviously go to the game. So by the time I get home, I don't have time to break the entire thing. So I want to be able to do the entire series in one podcast. But I think I'll try to start when it's away games. I will do like a post game kind of setup. So that way that's there for people to kind of get a run through, maybe it's 10-15 minutes long, nothing like too crazy long, but like the full series digest of everything. It's going to be like the 30-minute ish kind of style podcast. The last game against Sioux Falls, which is tomorrow or today, whenever you're listening to it, I will probably have a post-game show after. I might go, depending on what goes on with my throat. If I feel better, I'll go. If not, then I probably won't go. I'm hoping to go because Thursday I won't be able to go. Friday I'll be able to go, and luckily they don't have a game on Saturday because I'll be in Indy on Saturday, or actually going to a Sky Fever game. So that's going to be interesting and fun on that portion of it. But yeah. But that's gonna wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, and whenever you're watching this, and go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.